This is a 6-mark question about lead mining, which is part of Module C5, metal extraction. This question really shows how important it is to read the information. You really don't need to have learned anything in advance for this question because all of the information is given in that box at the top and in the table. It talks about miners making a deep hole through soft ground to reach lead ore and digging it out, and a second group of people processing that, putting it onto a wood fire, and that fire making different gases, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and melted lead. And then there's information about lead ore, and sulfur dioxide, telling you a little bit about the hazards of those different materials. So what are the risks involved in these processes? Well, first of all, there is a deep mine shaft through soft ground. So there are two risks here. The mine shaft could collapse, and that's because the ground is soft, and that will, of course, injure miners. Or the mine shaft is very deep, so there is the risk of something falling or being dropped, somebody falling or something being dropped down the mine shaft, and that, again, is a risk to the miners. Then there are a number of risks to the surface workers. They could be damaged. Well, there are 3 potential risks to the miners. This is a deep mine dug through soft earth, so the mine shaft could collapse. That's because the soil is soft, and that could injure the miners. The shaft is very deep, and therefore there's the risk of somebody falling or dropping the contents of the buckets that they're pulling up out of the mine, and that could also harm the miners. And finally, the miners are mining lead ore, and there is the risk of lead ore dust as they are digging it out of the ground, and that could harm the miners. There are also some risks to the surface workers. They're building a fire and heating the lead ore, so there are fumes from that caused by the high temperatures that they're heating it at, and that can harm surface workers. There are lead dust and fumes from the fire that can harm surface workers. They could be burned by anything that they're heating, and that will harm the surface workers. And finally, sulfur dioxide gas is being produced from the fire, and that can harm the surface workers. So that gives you 6 or 7 different hazards. And as long as you've written what the hazard is, how it's generated, and who might be injured, you will get the marks. For 2 marks, you need at least 1 hazard and how it's generated, or 2 hazards without saying how they're generated. For 4 marks, you need at least 2 hazards and how they are both generated. And for 6 marks, 4 hazards and at least how 2 of them are generated and who will be affected by them. So it's relatively easy on this question to get full marks as long as you read the information and read the key points in the question that they're asking you to write about.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.